Hello and welcome to, I think, episode 96 of 10,000 Stitches podcast, a bi-weekly chit-chat all about the joys of knitting. My name is Andy, and if you were looking for me on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Ravelry as Purlbug, P-U-R-L-B-U-G. You can find my blog at thepurlbug.com, and then we have the 10,000 Stitches podcast group on Ravelry. If you're looking for links to anything that I mentioned today, like patterns or shops or what have you, if you are watching via the embedded video on the blog post or the Ravelry thread, everything will be linked right below the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, in the description box below the video, there will be a link to the blog post. Like I said, you can go there and then everything will be linked right below the video. So today is currently July 1st. It is Sunday, July 1st. This episode should go up on Tuesday, July 3rd. So yeah, crazy that we are into the second half of 2018 now. Just crazy. By the way, it looks like I'm not wearing pants. I am wearing pants. I'm wearing shorts right now. And the reason for my kind of different recording setup today is that I have found that like sitting on my bed, which is what I normally do, tends to just wind up with me hurting after a while, like just, trying to sit up straight for that long. So I figured I would go back to the handy dandy IKEA chair and we'll see how this works. I know things are going to get a little bit washed out because I have two windows that are framing me right now, and so there's just a lot of light. So we'll see how this goes. I also did not take the camera off of autofocus, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, we'll just see how things go. But at this point, I just, I don't want to wind up destroying my back for, recording for an hour. So another thing before I really get into it is I wanted to say a very, very heartfelt thank you to everyone who commented on the YouTube video last week, or I guess from 2 weeks ago. Anyone who commented on YouTube or, in the Ravelry thread or anything like that. I've been really pressed for time the past 2 weeks, and so I haven't really had time to kind of individually reply, which is what I prefer to do. But at least on YouTube and on the Ravelry thread, I've been trying to hit either the little heart button on YouTube or the little love button on Ravelry, because I have been reading everything, and I asked for suggestions on how to use up some of my stash, and some of you guys really came through, so I really do appreciate that, and I am going to be looking into some of those things, / already have been. And then there was just some, well wishes on sort of my announcement that I'm leaving my current position at the end of the year and I'll be moving at the end of the year and all of that. And for that, I just really am thankful and I really appreciate it. And I just kind of wanted to mention that I know it seems like I have just been completely absent for a little while. I have been reading things. I just have barely had any time to do that, much less actually try to thoughtfully reply. So sorry about that. But that does not mean that I don't have anything to talk about. So I do have a pretty full episode for you guys, all of which is over on this chair. So I have a finished object, a almost half object, some works in progress, a little bit of dyeing to show off, and yeah, then we'll do question of the week. We'll talk about the new knit along, which just started today. And then we'll do some chit chat. So yeah, I think it'll be a pretty full episode. So let's get right into it and show off my finished object. I'm not going to talk too much about this because I've talked about these, I think, twice before. No, just once before. But I talked about these a lot in my last episode. But I finished my stripy socks. So these are some yarn that I dyed myself. This was my first attempt at self-striping. I really love the way it came out. There you can kind of see the striping pattern. Obviously the stripes are a bit uneven. I did not do that intentionally, but it works out fine. The heel is a contrasting heel. It's just a fish lips kiss heel done in some yarn that was left over from another pair of socks. And I talked about this last time I recorded, but I did a sort of folded hem on these, and yeah, I really like them. I haven't worn them yet because for one thing, it's July now, and July in Virginia is not really conducive to tall socks. But for another, I've been trying to keep them nice so I can show them off. But I think even still, they will probably go into my sock bin for winter because these are pretty tall and I just think they would be too warm to wear right now. But the details, so like I said, fish lips kiss heel, everything else is just pretty basic vanilla. I did do these as a toe up sock. 72 stitches on a US 0, which is a 2mm needle, and I think after the toe increases, there's like 85 rows of leg, normal fish lips kiss heel, and then I think 80 rows, or sorry, 85 rows of foot, I think 80 rows of leg, and then this part, the turned in part, is an additional 10 rows, and then I just sewed it down. So yeah, that's those. Pretty simple, pretty basic. I'm super duper in love with them and can't wait to wear them, and I really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people joke about self-striping yarn kind of being self-knitting yarn because it, you know, it's so sort of popcorny, and you just kind of like socks knit with self-striping yarn seem to just go a lot faster, and I definitely agree. So I think there will be more socks knit with self-striping yarn in my future. Because yeah, it's a way to take something which is vanilla and kind of take out the boringness of vanilla without actually having to do anything more complicated. So that's my finished object. Wow. So let's talk about my almost half object, which is along the same vein. So this is another pair of striped socks. And I know I talked about these last time as well. This is using yarn from Luna Pearl Yarns, and the colorway is Tropic of Calculus. And, oh, come on, focus. And as you can see, it's really beautiful. It's got some neon pinks and stuff in it. And it just produces this really great sort of self-striping pattern. And this is what it looks like knit up. So there you can kind of see the stripe pattern of that. So it's sort of like I guess like a 3-stripe repeat, but it's got the little bits of pink in between. This one I am on the toe, so I thought I was going to finish it before today, but you know, just didn't happen. But this one is basically the same as the other one, except worked top down. So it again has that sort of folded cuff on it, and then there are 90 rows of leg, and then another fish lips kiss heel, and then I think I did 75 rows of foot before I switched to the contrast color for the toe, and then I'm doing another 5 rows, and then sort of my standard toe. It's a 72 stitch sock, again knit on a US 0. Something I will note about this one. So I thought that the fish lips kiss heel, I mean the fish lips kiss heel is my go-to short row heel, and I like to do short row heels for things like this, just because I didn't really want the hassle of having to do an afterthought heel, even though I'm super comfortable with that, but I just didn't want to have to do that later, and I didn't want to break up the striping. So I like the fish lips kiss heel for that. I felt like on my other pair that it was just a little bit shallow because I basically did it to pattern. So for this one, I did something a little bit different, and you guys won't be able to see this, but right, so as I was working my way down the leg, when I decided like, okay, I'm ready to put in the heel. The row before the heel, on the back side of the leg, I increased by 4 stitches. So instead of having 36 stitches to make up the heel, I had 40 stitches to work with. And basically then I decreased down to the same point that I would have, which is 12 stitches in the middle. And then, you know, increased back up to 40 stitches, and then in the following row decreased away those 4 stitches. So that, you know, it still is a 72 stitch sock, but that meant that my heel has an extra an extra 4 rows of depth on each side. So it's definitely a little bit bigger. So you can kind of see the comparison between the two, right? So these are both 72 stitch socks, and you can see sort of how much bigger that blue heel is compared to the tan heel. And I feel like it helps a little bit with sort of, you know, just giving a little bit of extra room kind of around the heel region. So yeah, so we'll see. Obviously I haven't actually been able to wear it yet, but I figure it probably can't hurt, and it might help a little bit. So yeah, and I hadn't necessarily been intending on using the contrasting color for the toe, but I kind of just decided that, like, yeah, why not? So yeah, so I have, you know, just the toe left on this one, and then I'll start the next one. I'm not going to bother to try and match up the stripes on them, so I might actually go out of my way to intentionally mismatch the stripes, because while I don't necessarily mind not matching, I will be super annoyed if they're off by like 2 rows, right? If it looks like I almost matched, that really annoys me. So I may go out of my way to intentionally mismatch them, but we'll see. But yeah, these, definitely this one will be finished by the next time I talk to you guys, but who knows where the other one will be, because like I said before, these are sort of my at-work knitting. So, you know, some days I get a little bit of time to pick away at them, and some days I get practically none. So, you know, which is fine because I really enjoy the yarn so much that like these are sort of a process knit. And so, you know, I don't mind that they're taking a while because it just means I get to come back to the yarn more often. So yeah, so that's that. And that's one work in progress. That's my only sock work in progress currently. Let's talk, oh no, that is not my only sock work in progress. I have another sock work in progress. And this is again a self-striping sock. So once I finished the striped socks using my hand-dyed yarn, I decided that I would go ahead and cast on another pair of vanilla socks. And these are using the Regia Perfect. And I think I showed this off last week, or last time when I showed off my stash. This is what they should knit up like. And I like Regia. I've, you know, sung praises of Regia Perfect before. I think it's a really, I mean, I really love this sort of ingenious idea of the Perfect specifically, and it's a really hard-wearing yarn, and I really like it. But I wasn't sure that I needed another pair of Perfect socks because I already have two. So I wound up asking my older brother if he would like sort of a fun striped pair of socks to wear, and he said that he definitely would. Like, he would wear something like that while he's teaching as sort of dress socks. And so I am knitting him just a pair of vanilla socks. I haven't quite decided if I'm going to do a short row heel or a heel flap on these yet, but I basically have until the current stripe that I'm on, until the end of it, to figure out what I'm doing. But this is how that sort of looks knit up. Like I said, I'm on the very last stripe of this sort of leg section, and then I'll move into the foot. But yeah, I really like it. Again, it's gone really quickly because, you know, you're like, oh, I just want to get to the next stripe. I just want to see what the next color is. And yeah, so that's that. It's just a plain vanilla sock. Otherwise, I know I said that, you know, I think my go-to for vanilla socks might be doing that sort of folded cuff. I decided not to do that on this one because, for one thing, it's not for me, and for another thing, here it actually does sort of matter with like the striping, like how you knit the cuff, and so yeah, I figured I would just do a regular 2x2 rib. And this is a 72 stitch sock on a US 1, which is a 2.25 millimeter needle, which I think should fit my brother's feet okay. His feet are the same length as mine, but they are a little bit wider than mine, so I think this should work well for him. But yeah, not a lot to talk about there. It's just kind of like a thing. Again, it's like a thing that I pick up when I am sick of knitting, you know, like a shawl or something like that. Like, this is just like a nice other thing to work on. And my goal is to get these finished by the time I see my older brother next, which will be in August. So I think that should be no problem. I have like 6 weeks to finish them. So yeah, that's that. And I will keep you guys updated on how that's going. So another work in progress that I actually tidied up just for you guys because I care is my Match and Move shawl. This had sat untouched for probably 10 days, maybe even more than that, up until yesterday. And so, like I said, the last time I recorded, I'm now on to sort of the second phase of this shawl, which is basically where you shuffle stitches from one side of the center to the other to kind of create this asymmetric triangle shape. And when you're done shuffling stitches, you're done. But unfortunately, the rows now don't change in size, right? They're not getting smaller. They're just, for me, about 200 stitches long, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And so I had actually gotten stuck on the spot where I needed to put in the most recent yellow stripe, just because I don't even know, because it was like, oh, I have to do something slightly more full of effort, and I just got stuck there and just didn't do it until yesterday when I picked it back up and I was like, putting in the yellow stripe. And then since then, I've gotten, you know, a couple rows done, maybe about 10 rows total done since that. So I think I'm back sort of in my mojo with this thing, and maybe I just needed a break from it, I don't know. But I did put it on a longer needle, so it's now on a 40-inch cable, so I can sort of spread it out for you guys and you can sort of see it. Unfortunately, like, it's just not an easy thing to try and show. Let's see, maybe I can, without losing all my stitches. Hey, there we go. So you can sort of see the shape of it. So this is going to be one corner, and then you can sort of see the point down at the bottom there. And then, yeah, it'll have that sort of long bound off edge that'll kind of form the rest of the other edge. And yeah, not much to it. Like I said, this is the Match and Move by Martina Bem. I am knitting this on a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter needle with some of my own hand-dyed yarn. and I'm really liking it. I am onto the second skein. I don't know if you guys can see here, but there's a whole bunch of ends over here where I alternated in my second skein of the purple and white yarn. I say alternated in, but I think I only alternated them for like 2 or 3 rows. I kind of figured that like with the way that this yarn is sort of knitting up, it doesn't matter. Like I probably could have just stopped one and started the other, and I don't think it would have made a difference. So yeah, that's that. And I just have a tiny bit left of the original ball. So my attempt to, you know, not get worried too much about it paid off. I probably could have knit a couple more rows out of this, but you know me. So yeah, that's that. I don't know if I will necessarily have it finished by the next time I record, but I definitely, like I said, I feel like my mojo for this thing has come back, and I really would like it finished. And so, especially because I'm kind of telling myself no other big projects until this gets finished. So I definitely think I will be putting some time in on it, and we'll see. But yeah, that's that. Which does bring me to another work in progress, which is sort of a big project, but this is sort of along the lines of my like granny stripe blanket, where it's sort of a scrappier, just chew up stash project. Speaking of chewing up stash, someone suggested, so last time when I showed off my stash, I showed off all those balls that I have, which are like, you know, somewhere between 15 and 40 grams worth of yarn, like the odd size where it's like, what do I do with this? And a couple people suggested, you know, winding off some like 10-gram minis and then maybe like getting rid of those as like sets, which may be a thing that I wind up doing. I'm not entirely sure. But someone else suggested a pattern which I think is called Fiddly Bits. It's sort of like this tubular cowl scarf thing, which is basically just a big sock. You basically just, but it's sort of like, I think it's that you make a magic knot ball and you just knit a big tube with it, and then when you decide you're done, you like join the two ends together, and it basically just becomes this big long loop sort of thing that you can kind of loop around your neck. And I think I might make one of those because that sort of just seems really fun, and it seems like a really good sort of like portable project, like something I could take to work or something, and just a good way to chew up scraps, and sort of like my Scrappy Bias shawl, which I get so many compliments on. Like, it's so weird because like that one, I didn't really think very hard about it. I just sort of did it, and that's like the knitted thing that I get so many compliments on. So maybe a Fiddly Bits would be a good thing, or maybe just another Scrappy Bias shawl. I don't know. I digress. So this is a thing that I started to chew up a bunch of, actually skeins that I have of this Regia Highland tweed. And I didn't show this off last time, but I have a bunch of this because it was really generously destashed to me a while ago. And I just wasn't really sure what to do with it because it's sort of like, it's sort of a single ply, but it's not really a single ply. It's a weird sort of yarn. Like it's, oh, do they have the compass? It's 54% wool, 28% viscous, and 18% nylon. So it's like, I don't really know what to do with it. It is machine washable, apparently. But I wasn't sure what to do with it. It's sort of like a very heavy sock yarn / a light sport weight yarn. And so I think I had shown it before because I was thinking about making sort of a like a sweater or something with it, and I just never got around to it. But I have started making a blanket out of it. And this is sort of, I mean, it's loosely based off of the Pearl Soho pattern for the fisherman rib scarf, I think. But I think this is the same method that's used to do the, oh, what is it? Bits and Bob's blanket. Like, it's sort of a faux brioche because it's fisherman's rib. But yeah, it's sort of a faux brioche. It winds up looking like brioche, but it's not brioche. And instead of like doing the yarn overs like you do with brioche, what you do is you knit into the stitch below the row that you're working on. So this is sort of how it looks. Hey, there we go. Sorry, it's so washed out. But it does look a lot like brioche, and it has that sort of same squishy texture to it, but it's a lot easier. So yeah, I think I cast on 101 stitches if I remember correctly, and there's a 5-row sort of garter bit on each side. I did a couple rows in garter before I started, and then the rest is just that fisherman's rib. I'm knitting this on a US 9, which is a, I don't know what that is in metric. An 8 is a 5mm, so this might be a 5.5mm needle. And And I'm just going to keep knitting it until I run out of the current balls I have, and then I'll join up some other balls, and I'll just sort of, I do have enough colors that I can sort of alternate some colors, and there will be some sort of something to it. But as you can see, this yarn itself too is self-striping, so who knows what'll happen. But I figure with sort of the width that I have, it would make a good like baby blanket maybe, or like, it's not, I don't think it'd be a super great like baby blanket necessarily because it's not a super soft yarn, but it might make a good like stroller cover blanket. I don't really know. Or just a lap blanket. I don't know. But you know, I'll probably wind up giving it away or donating it or something, but it's another thing that I can do for when I'm bored with some of my other projects. And hopefully it will help me chew up that yarn. So that's another sort of work in progress that, similar to my granny stripe blanket, you know, now that I've kind of shown it off once, you guys may not see this again for quite a while, just because I don't necessarily think that there will be appreciable progress to be shown on it each time I record. But yeah, that is another thing that I'm working on. And in terms of what's coming up next, like I said, I really want to try and finish my match and move, and then once I finish my match and move, I will probably embark on a sweater again. I know I mentioned a couple designs by Joji Locatelli last week, and last time I recorded, and I'm still probably thinking my next thing will be the long line cardigan, but we'll kind of see. There are a couple other shawls that I've seen lately that have kind of caught my interest, shawls and or wraps that have sort of caught my interest, so who knows? I feel like whenever I talk about what's coming up next, like, don't ever take me too seriously, because it's sort of like, what am I thinking right now? But then when the time comes, like, who knows? Who knows what I'll do? So yeah, so that's sort of what's coming up next, in that I don't know what's coming up next. But, oh, and the fiddly bits, like I said, I think that would be a fun project to kind of take on. But first I have to sort of make the magic knot balls and all that stuff. So yeah, hard to say. But let's take a pause and then we'll come back to talk about dyeing. All right, I apologize a little bit if my light has changed between the last clip and this one. I actually got a call from my little brother as I was saving the last clip, and then we talked for like an hour, so yeah. But yeah, it is actually his birthday this next week, and I know he doesn't watch these, but just in case he does, happy birthday, little dude. I say little, he's not little, he's like bigger than me. He's like 2 of me, he's just like a huge person. But yeah, so happy birthday. Anyway, let's talk dyeing. So I had one successful dyeing thing and one failed dyeing thing. So my successful one is this skein. This is one of the skeins of 7525 BFL nylon that I got, that I talked about in the last episode. And this one is just sort of speckles. Let's focus, focus, focus. So there's sort of green and then like pink and purple speckles, and then there's this sort of pop of pink along the end, which is of course getting hecka washed out. If I hold it back here, that's maybe a little bit better. But yeah, it's just speckles. It was just me playing around with a different sort of method of doing speckles. I'm not entirely sure that I love this method, which is why I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I do kind of want to figure out a better method for doing speckles. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure that I loved this method, so we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, this will probably just turn into a pair of socks or something during our next knit along, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, that's that. And then I was going to dye up another skein of self-striping yarn, and I, you know, did my whole method where I put the chairs on opposite sides of my apartment and started kind of, you know, winding the yarn around them, which just takes forever. And I got it, you know, into a big, huge, long hank. And then I went to, you know, soak it in my little, I put it in the bowl to soak it, you know, to get it ready to dye. And then when I went to take it out of the bowl, of course, with self-striping, like, you have to only put particular parts of this big, long mess into the pot at a given time. And I went to kind of pull it out and kind of separate it out, and like, it just got massively tangled. And this is actually relatively untangled. It's probably gotten a little bit tangled because I've been throwing it around because I just haven't dealt with it yet. But I did manage to get it untangled after it dried, but then it just, something else happened with it, and I don't really, like, skein's all messed up, to the point where I can, you know, I can get it wound back up into a ball in it, and it will be usable again. But it's just, I don't know what happened, and I just sort of lost my mojo after that. So that was sort of sad. I mean, the nice thing is, like I said, the yarn is not ruined. It's still totally usable. It's just like very frustrating. I guess it's a lesson that like I need even more ties than I put on the skein. So live and learn, I guess. But yeah, that's been sort of the entirety of my dyeing. I definitely, you know, like I said, I want to maybe start a sweater once I get finished with my current shawl project. And so I have been thinking about like what color I want to dye up for that, but I haven't actually made any moves on it yet. So we'll see. Maybe by next time I record, I'll have something to show you guys for that. But let's talk knit along. So our current knit along has just started. Actually, our previous knit along, the Funky Town Cal, just ended this morning. Basically, I closed down the thread for it this morning. And the winner was post number 28, who is, well, your Ravelry name is DJID and your name is Deborah. And I will probably have already sent you a message on Ravelry by the time you see this. So reply to that and tell me your address so I can send out your prize. And then that starts our 4th knit along of 2018, and I forget, I think this one is called Little Things. I think that's sort of like the big huge theme, and then the two sort of sub themes that breaks down into is a technique of all over patterning and a color theme of speckles. So in terms of the speckles, basically just a yarn that has speckles in it. I'm still trying to kind of decide like how I want to define that, or kind of like what threshold I want to do. But what I'm going to say to start with is basically if the yarn has speckles, then it's fine. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be a yarn with a ton of speckles in it, but it should be like you should be able to look at the yarn and say like, yeah, that has speckles. And speckles, of course, being like little bits of color, right? So like if you look at this, right, like those little speckles are very sort of confined, I guess is maybe the word that I'm looking for, right? So like it's not just like variegation, it's not just being tonal, like it is very confined, defined little spots of color that are different than the background color. That is speckles. And then for all over patterning, basically that just means that your thing that you make has to have some sort of, you know, pattern over the entire object. Basically, it can't be stockinette. So good examples of that would maybe be something like Hermione's Everyday Socks, or like Blueberry Waffle Socks. Or I'm trying to think of things on the fly, and that's not easy for me. Or, you know, basically anything that has some sort of all over stitch pattern. Basically, if the pattern has you doing some sort of pattern stitch, that's probably okay. And like I said last time, if you are a type of person who knits socks or something and you only do the pattern along the like top part of the foot, that's totally fine for all over patterning, right? Basically like 50% of the object should have some sort of stitch pattern on it. So again, if you maybe are making mittens and it has like a pattern that only runs over the back of the hand, that's fine. It basically, things that would not count is something where like, oh, there's just like a little bit of lace around the cuff, or there's just like a little bit of color work, or even something like the like I will say the like socks on a plane, I will count that, because like while that pattern is a relatively small portion, like you do have to be thinking about it every single row. So something like that is fine, because again, it runs the entire length of the sock. But basically, like you should be working this pattern the entire time that you're doing the thing, even if it's only on one side. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully. Well, no, I'm going to commit to having the cowl threads up before I put this episode up, so I will guilt myself into doing that. And those will be linked below, unless, of course, you're in the Ravelry group already, in which case just go back out to the board and it'll be there. But that'll have all the rules. And, I mean, the rest of the rules, the usual rules still apply. So has to be at least 50 grams worth of yarn, has to fit at least one of those two, you know, sort of subcategories. Has to be started and finished within the time of the cowl, but that's basically it. So yeah, I hope to see you guys in the threads. I really did enjoy the last knit along, because it was so fun to see people doing like neons, and I loved seeing all like the scrappy projects. Like the amount of progress that some people made to like cozy memories blankets and stuff was just like super duper fun. So that was a ton of fun, and I really enjoyed that. And I'm even thinking maybe about having like an ongoing cowl that's related to that, but like I'm not committing to anything. So I'm pondering it. I'm thinking about it. But yeah, so that's our new knit along. I don't have a prize for it yet, but I will maybe by the next time we record, or maybe later, but we'll see. But yeah, that's that. And then question of the week. So this will relate sort of to my what I talk about in the chit chat, what I'm planning on talking about in the chit chat. We'll see if I get to it or not. But I do my question of the week, and sort of relates to a question that I asked, I think, a couple weeks ago, where I sort of asked, like, what is something that you do just for yourself? And my question of the week this time is, what is something that you've decided you just don't care about anymore? Like that you have no cares left to give about this particular thing. And just to kind of give an example, I have basically gotten to the point where I just don't care anymore about like my social media brand kind of thing. Like, there's sort of this like pressure among young people to kind of like make yourself into like a brand, and like you have to market yourself and like all of this stuff. And I've decided like, I just don't care. And even as I'm sort of like job hunting, I'm sort of applying the same thing where it's like, I just don't care. I don't care about like branding myself or marketing myself. Like, I just can't care about that. Like, I mean, who knows? Maybe it causes me to miss out on opportunities, but like, I have a limited number of cares to give, and that's a thing that I just have none to give to. So what is something like that for you? Like, it could be something totally trivial. Like maybe you've decided that you just don't care about doing your hair fancy anymore. Like I have decided also that I don't care about wearing makeup, right? Like I have had different attempts throughout the years to try and like teach myself to put on makeup and wear makeup on a daily basis, because I didn't grow up doing it. And I've decided, you know what? I just don't care, right? I just don't care about it. I'm just not going to do it anymore. And it can be very freeing when you decide like, I don't care about it anymore. And you just kind of like let it go. So what is something like that for you? I would love to hear about that, because I think that could be a really fun thing to kind of talk about. Is like, what's something that you've decided you just don't care about? And we'll try and keep it a judgment-free zone as per the usual. I think we're usually pretty good about that, but for this especially, like, let's try and keep it very judgment-free, because I think it's just fun, and I think, everyone has different things that they do or don't care about. Like, I know a lot of people care a lot about makeup, and I don't judge them for that, but I've decided I just don't care about it anymore, and it lets me free up my brain space for other things. So what's a thing like that for you? But that is going to be about it for the knitting content this week. So if that's all you cared about, thank you very much for hanging out with me, and I will see you again most likely in 2 weeks. Otherwise, hang around and we'll talk a little bit about some chit chat. We'll talk about what my life has been like for the past 2 weeks, and hopefully I will get to the thing that brought about the question of the week. So yeah, if you're interested, hang around and we'll do that in just a second. Chit chat time. And I actually, while I was on the phone with my little brother, managed to finish the last stripe on my perfect sock. So I think I've decided I'm doing a heel flap, so I'm gonna work on that while we chat. But yeah, so the past 2 weeks have been crazy busy, but there's not really a lot to talk about. So let's see. Like I said last time, I am teaching a summer course right now, and that has just been like sucking up all of my time, because it's like, so the way that I kind of have it organized is we meet 3 days a week for 2 hours a day. And I give them, I kind of like to know going into the week what my plan for the week is. So like this past week, it was finishing up atomic models, which we did on Monday, and then talking about like particle properties of waves on Wednesday and Friday. And then that was kind of like the last stuff we're doing before the midterm. So that's sort of my schedule. So I kind of knew, what I was planning to do during the week, but I give them homework on Wednesdays for all the material covered in the week, which means that I have to know what we're covering on Friday before I can write the homework for Wednesday, which was okay the first couple weeks because I kind of had done a lot of stuff ahead of time. But this time I had kind of run out of my pre-prepared materials, so I spent all day Tuesday like trying to get stuff ready so that I would, have lecture notes and be able to give them their homework on Wednesday. Plus, I sort of, like a fool, promised them that I would also give them some practice problems that would be very similar to what's on the midterm tomorrow, Monday, right? For you guys, it'll be yesterday, but for me, it's tomorrow. But that kind of meant that I had to know what the midterm was going to be like before I could write up questions that were similar to what's on the midterm. So then I spent all day Thursday doing that so I could give them the questions on Friday. So it's just, you know, luckily this week is the midterm. So like tomorrow I'm giving them those practice questions, and then the midterm is not until Friday because there's no class on Wednesday because it's a holiday and the university's closed. So so that gives me lots of time where like I don't have to be like, I've already prepared the midterm. So that gives me lots of time to start preparing for the couple weeks after the midterm and hopefully again get a little bit of a head start on things, because now we're really starting into like the weird stuff, like the sort of quantum mechanics stuff, and it's going to require a little bit more preparation, I think. So yeah, like that has just kept me like super duper busy every day, but like there's not, like it's not super exciting. It's just like a lot of slogging through the work. Plus, like, you know, like I said last time, my normal work, which is, you know, setting up all the labs and stuff for summer, also is a thing that needs to get done right now. And some of those days just take way longer than other days. So yeah, it's been busy, and it doesn't like look like it's going to let up anytime soon, because the course I'm teaching goes all the way until I think August 1st is our final, and the summer labs, like most of them end kind of around that time, and there's one that ends just a little bit later. So like July is going to be busy for me. So you know, we'll kind of see how that pans out. But yeah, it's going to be a busy month for me. Just yeah, trying to get all that stuff done. I'm also trying to do a better job of exercising lately, because that is like one of those things to where I feel like it's so easy for me to like get on like a really good little streak and then just like completely fall off track. So I figure July is a good month to really hit it again hard, because I'm not visiting Wesley at all. And so I basically have the entire month to just focus on me and get healthy. So I've actually taken back up running again, because not because I particularly like running, but just because running is a thing which in my mind is fairly easy to do, at least sort of at this like beginner stage. Because like for me, running basically just means go for a run, right? Like just go out and run somewhere between 1 and 2 miles, and then come back and be all sweaty. So like that's my goal for running. And so like at this stage it's very easy, and I figure, you know what, easy is more important than anything else, so I will run for the month of July. So that's gonna be cool. But yeah, so like that's like the thing I want to focus on in July. And also just doing some like adulty things. Like I need a new pair of glasses. Like I really need a new pair of glasses, because this pair is really old, and like the coating I think on the front of them is starting to wear off, and they're just like getting really scratched. So I figure, you know, it's about time to get myself a new pair of glasses. So I just ordered some frames from Warby Parker to try on. So hopefully by the next time I see you guys, I can say like, yes, I ordered a new pair of glasses, because I have a current prescription. I just haven't gotten around to ordering glasses. So that's fun. Partly because it's really expensive. And I don't particularly enjoy that. But yeah, that's kind of like I feel like my life is so busy right now. But like I said, there's just not much to talk about, because like it's a lot of the same old, and like even the same old is not that super interesting. It's just like trying to get through and not like drop any of the balls that I'm trying to keep in the air. So let's talk about something else, right? Let's talk about the thing that inspired the question of the week. So I started reading this book actually just earlier this morning, and like so far it's been a pretty quick read. I think I will probably finish it before the end of the day, because it's just like there's not much to it. But it is called The Life-Changing Magic of Not Giving a where insert swear word at the end there that I am not going to say, because I like to keep this pretty child-friendly. But yeah, let's just say it's a word that sounds like a certain kitchen utensil. So you probably know what I mean. But I am going to substitute that word with care, because that is a much easier word, and it's not anywhere close to the way that the other word sounds, so it makes it much less likely that I will slip up at all and accidentally put in the wrong word. So basically, the title is the life-changing magic of not giving a care. And obviously it's a little bit of a riff on the Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo, which is a book that I have not read, but have heard a lot about. And basically this whole book is like, so the Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up is all about like clearing up your physical space and like how to like deal with like physical clutter. And this book, I mean, it's very tongue-in-cheek, right? Like it doesn't take itself seriously. And like I said, it's not like it's a hard read or anything. It's very like chatty. But basically this author's whole thing is like about clearing up your mental space, like tidying up your mental space instead of your physical space. What did I just do here? Yeah, okay. Sorry, I like dropped a stitch and then got really confused. So it's all about like clearing up your mental space and deciding, instead of like letting go of physical things, like do they bring you joy or do they not, like dealing with like the sort of things that you care about, like deciding just not to care about things and like being okay with that. And like this is not the first book I've read like this. I also read a book by I think it's Mark Manson, which is called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a insert same swear word, which again is sort of, you know, very similar. It's like, hey, you should just like there are things in your life like you just shouldn't care about. And again, it's written very sort of like in a jokey sort of way. If you want like a more serious book to read about this sort of topic, I have read one of those too, and it is called Essentialism, and I've probably recommended it before, but it is sort of, again, a book that is not really about minimalism because it's not dealing about like stuff, but it's dealing about like ideas and habits. And so that's like a book that I would definitely recommend everyone read. But basically like the premise of all these is sort of the same. It's like stop saying yes to things where you want to say no, and like stop giving mental energy to things that you really just don't care about. And obviously, right, like I've read a couple of these books now, so it's like I can't say that any of them have really made like these huge like lasting changes, but I do think it's kind of like one of those things to where like thinking about it every so often, it's like if I can just make one little change every so often, like that is useful. So like, you know, maybe if after reading this current one, if I decide like, you know what I just don't care about is I just don't care about whatever, right? Like I can't think of it. Well, I'm reading it right now because I'm trying to stop stressing out about getting a new job, right? Like this is a thing that has been causing me a significant amount of stress in my life is this whole process of like, you know, applying for jobs and stuff, which is really stressful because I'm so far out that like I don't really expect people to be, you know, getting in contact with me yet, but like at the same time, it's looking for a new job is stressful, right? Anyone who's ever had to find a new job knows that it's stressful. And it starts to like echo sort of the process that I went through when I was looking for my current job, which is that, and I may have talked about this before, but like it took me a really long time to find my current job, and I applied for a lot of jobs before I got my current job. And just like you know, that's just kind of how it goes. But like what really got me was that like I got no interviews while I was looking for my current job. Like I had a really hard time just getting interviews with anyone because it was just like nobody wanted to talk to me. And you know, that was like really stressful. And it's still like one of those things that like when I think about it, it just like really fills me with like this like deep fear sort of thing, because like at the time when I got my current job, I was basically out of money. Like I had, you know, saved up a bunch of money before I left my previous job because we kind of knew in advance that we were going to be moving. And so I had saved up a bunch of money for, you know, for the interim time. And then I just like couldn't find a job and just couldn't find a job and couldn't find a job and couldn't find a job. And the unfortunate thing was that like Wesley at the time was in grad school, so it's not like he was really making money either. I mean, he had like a small stipend, but like it wasn't enough. Like it wasn't enough to support the two of us, that's for sure. So there was a lot of pressure on me to like get a job. Like you need to have a job soon. And I got really lucky that one came, that like my current job happened to come around at the right time and that I do actually enjoy the job that I had. But it was like, it didn't matter. Like I had to take whatever job came along. And so, like, that is something I've been stressing about now that I'm looking for a new job, as I think is, like, totally appropriate to stress about, right? Like, I sort of had this horrific experience, and like, I don't think it's, like, I don't think it's completely out of proportion to be stressed out about it now. But the point being, I really shouldn't be stressed out about it, right? Like obviously I should be stressed out to the point where it's like, yes, keep applying for jobs. But like, you know, a lot has changed about my situation. Like I now actually have grown up work history, and Wesley has a real job. So like I could move in with him, you know, tomorrow, and it would be totally fine because he's now making enough money that he could support us for a while. So it's like the situation is totally different, and yet I still find myself giving way too much care to this thing which is stressing me out, which is something that's completely beyond my control. So that's something like I need to start like kind of working on. Is I think I am going to sort of use this book as a catalyst to write up a list of the things that I am going to care about, and just say like, you know what, everything else I don't have any cares to give. Like I am out of cares to give. Sorry, not sorry. Emphasis on the not sorry. So I think, you know, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily, or maybe I didn't say it, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend this particular book that I'm currently reading, and I wouldn't even recommend the Mark Manson one. But if you are a person who is interested in this sort of topic of like, sort of like mental minimalism, or you know, maybe time minimalism. I'm not exactly sure like what the right way to phrase it is, but like I think of it as like mental minimalism, in that like, you know, you stop worrying, or you make an effort to stop spending mental energy on things that are just cluttering you up instead of like the things that you really care about. I definitely recommend that Essentialism book. It is sort of a business book, but I think it is a very approachable business book, and it doesn't have like a ton of like business jargon. So like it's a book that I would recommend to anyone who is interested in this sort of topic. But I'm not entirely sure if any of that made sense. But I think that I am about out of energy for today, and it is now, what time is it? 20 to 4. So I need to get some other stuff done today. So yeah, so I'm gonna call it for the day, and thanks very much for hanging out with me. Hopefully that chit chat section didn't get too weird, or if it did, hopefully I can edit it so it makes more sense. But yeah, that's going to be it. Thanks very much for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys again in probably about 2 weeks. Bye.